Hey everybody, what's up? Circus here. I just want to let you know the video you're about to watch was originally a 30-minute video, but after we recorded it, Ryi and I thought maybe it'd be better as a two-part video so that way it wasn't so long. So today you're getting part one, tomorrow you'll get part two. I hope you enjoy because we had a lot of fun doing it. So enjoy. Hey everybody, what's up? Circus here, coming at you with a meta analysis video. This time we're gonna do rogue decks, and today I got Ryi joining me. How you doing,
Hello.
buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm pretty excited because this is something we haven't done for a while. Is rogue decks. Usually we're focused on tier one, tier two, tier three, stuff like that. So it'd be fun to kind of look at the outliers, right? The ones that
Yeah,
maybe they can top, but you gotta have the right pilot.
for sure.
All right. So this is a deck. The first one we're gonna do is a deck that we've been seeing do pretty well lately, but it's basically one guy putting in all the work. uh,
Yeah.
and that's Yosenjus. So where are we at with this deck?
Yeah, so Yosenjus, they were looking really good up until Dark Magician came out and was super popular. They were a very back row heavy deck back in the
Hmm.
day. Um Now they've kind of adjusted to play around a little bit the Dark Magician. They have new tools in comma one, which allows them to bounce a lot of cards. Um, and this has actually gotten a slight buff in recent times because Samurai Destroyer up until now, if he gets bounced to the extra deck, he would just summon a machine. His effect would trigger, but now Konami took that effect away from him.
Okay.
So that actually made up the matchup against Kristrons. Any deck that plays it so much better for Yosenju, hilariously enough. And then people just started playing multiple OEM, mostly at 2, some at 3, and still playing that heavy back row, but not as heavy, replacing it with things like Forbidden Lance and Drowning Mirror Force that are more high impact back row instead of everything just being back row, and then having
Hmm.
like a couple of monsters sprinkled in there.
So is this just
So
basically you just kind of stall and let Shadow Game take care of them? Because in the past, before Shadow Game was adopted, I mean, you still want to do a lot
mhm.
of poking, and you don't see a lot of poking nowadays, do you?
Yeah, I mean, these days it's more you want to stay ahead of your opponent in the Shadow King economy game.
Hmm.
And then when you have the opportunity to try an OTK with combo one summoning, combo one, combo two, or whatever, just having like a whole bunch of monsters, bounce back their only monster, and swing for game. If you're unable to do that, you're pretty much just stalling out with OEM, stalling out with your back row, removing heavy monsters, Lava Golem, etc., until Shadow Game does its thing. Um, and then, of course, you could always take out Shadow Game if you're not interested in self-burning. If you're playing against a deck, for
Right.
example, Invoke, that's going to be taking a lot of cards out of their graveyard. Sometimes it's a good idea to get rid of Shadow Game and play something else. But for the most part, these days, the only thing that's really unfortunate for this deck that's kind of keeping it away from the tier list is if it gets hit with something like a Fiendish Chain, if it gets hit with something like a Floodgate, you're very open to a Purgatrio kind of coming in, and just annihilating your day, which is why you've seen people kind of adapt, play defense draw, play stuff like that to kind of avoid, okay, I got Fiendish Chained, I'm gonna play defense draw so I don't die in this very next turn. Um,
I
so
would
the
think
deck,
another deck I'd be worried about would be Cyber Dragons, right? You set too many back row, you could lose them all.
yeah, you could lose all your back row. The only thing kind of protecting you from Cyber Dragon is they don't really boost their attack as much. So you get a good OEM out there, and they can't really get past it without
Hmm.
their Herald of the Abyss or something like that. So it's a deck that can surprisingly adapt very well to certain decks. If you know what deck you're going up against, the Yosenju can kind of stall you out in a perfect way. But they just got
Right.
to know who they're going up against. If it's Cyber Dragon, Dark Magician, more monster focused rather than back row focused. If it's E-Saber, more back row focused. Like for example, you don't really see them play Floodgates anymore, but Floodgate's amazing against E-Saber. Hitting
Right.
things like Purg and Casitas and all these untargetable monsters and things like that.
So is this better at tournaments or better on the ladder, you think?
Um, I would say Yosenju. Yosenju's probably better on ladder, to be completely honest. Just
It's
because.
robust enough. I mean, this build we're looking at now, it's got the Drowning
Oh
Mirror
yeah, for sure,
Forces,
for sure.
defense
Like
draw.
you're
It
not gonna
accounts
see
for
Fiendish
more.
Chain. Yeah, you're not gonna see Fiendish Chain. You're not gonna see those kinds of problem cards on the ladder. You're gonna have a wider, more diverse pool of players to go up against. In tournament play, that's why you only see one Yosenju at max, sometimes two Yosenjus top.
Right.
Everyone's gonna bring the best cards possible, even in a free tournament like ours. everyone's always going to have something in their side deck that can do well against Yosenju, Herald of the Abyss or something like that.
Right.
So even though you'll see like one or two people go far, I do still think it's primarily any stall or burn or alternative win style, we'll call them, decks. They always end up doing better on
They
ladder just
excel on
because
the ladder.
people just don't expect it for whatever
Right.
reason.
They don't know how to
So,
play into it.
and yeah, and they're not preparing their deck to counter Yosenju. Like right now, if I go to rank, I'm not gonna be like, all right, I gotta get ready for that Yosenju matchup. It's gonna be like, no, I'm gonna get
No,
ready for
not
DM, I'm gonna
happening.
get ready for Cyber.
Yeah.
So
All right. Next deck is a fan favorite for some reason. I don't get it, but Dragunity. What?
Dragunity, oh
Yeah.
boy.
This
Yeah, so
they just want to get that level 10 out, right?
It's
Ascalon is
it's
it?
pretty much, yeah, you get a really huge guy out. It's super satisfying to blow up your opponent's board while they can't do anything about it, and then just kill them in that same turn, without them really reacting to it.
Mhm.
Dragoony is really interesting. They're a synchro climbing deck. Your boss dragon Ascalon, he is very, very good because he's not once per turn and he can banish
Right.
face up monsters
He's
that
got to
your
banish one
opponent
from
controls.
his grave, and then he can banish one of yours, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and it's a very powerful effect. Banishing is extremely powerful in the current meta. Dragoonities actually do very well against Cristrons, which a lot of people consider a tier 1, tier 2 deck right now. So that's why like you'll see like a lot of Dragoonity Crystron matchups actually end up going to Dragoonity. Um, the only kind of downside to them is they're an OTK deck, naturally, like how these big all-in decks are, but they have a more difficult time OTKing than most people because they once they build up that Ascalon isn't going to OTK. It has to be an Ascalon plus another Kus or Ascalon equipped with the lance that lets him go over 4K to swing for lethal, and all of these are really disruptible with back row, with Sphere Creepos, etc., etc. That's why you see a lot of them play True Nade and Cosmic, because it's like, all right,
Right.
the True Nade is for me to summon my monster. The Cosmic is there so I can guarantee lethal the following turn.
Because they're sitting at what,
Or
3000K Ascalon, right? So
yeah, it's like 33, 35, something like that. I don't
okay.
exactly
All
remember
right.
the
So
number,
by
but
itself, it
it's
can't do it.
yeah, it's literally just anything else in their deck would get them lethal.
Okay.
But where comparatively other Cyber Dragon
Mhm.
heroes, the two best OTK decks, one monster, you're gonna get OTK'd, like one Chimera Tech Dragon or one Anki, and that's it. Like you're done.
So does one Necro Valley shut this deck down?
Pretty much, and that's why they play Triple Cosmic in the main deck. If you play Necro Valley, all of the floating effects and stuff they don't work anymore, and that's the other power point of Ascalon. He's a good turn 1 play too, because if you just put him in defense, he has a lot of defense, and if they're able to kill him, then it lets you synchro summon, specifically synchro summon, not special, not anything like that. Is synchro summon from your extra deck for free, so you can go into your
Nice.
I think it's called Basha or whatever, the green one, and that lets you get your Kus back from the grave. And then if they don't deal with that following turn, you have a free Ascalon that you didn't have to do anything to summon.
Okay. So
So yeah,
we're
one Necro Valley would just shut the whole thing down.
so where are we at? I mean, this is a deck. I mean, we saw it. What? There was three of them in the top 32, and they all got wrecked by
They
a
got
Neos deck,
murdered.
right?
Yeah, the Neos deck just went hyper, Necro Valley turn 1 every game and just shut them down immediately. Yeah, no, this deck it relies on opening a God Hand, which to its credit is super easy to get because a God Hand essentially is one or more Cosmic Cyclone or one True Nade plus any of your Dragunity starters, and there you go, you've God handed your opponent. So 3
Right.
cards tops, and you're in there.
But why aren't we seeing more success with this deck?
Mostly because of bricking. In the past, people would just play grit, and then if they don't have a good starting hand, they'll just pass
Okay.
and let grit there do the thing. They can't do that anymore.
Right.
So now it's super reliant on your opening hand, and if you go first, you have one less card in your hand. You can't do the OTK combo. So even if you do God Hand, you can't do anything. Opening up Hey Trinade turn 1 is useless.
Right.
You gotta wait. So
Okay.
it's just one of those things where if they had a little bit more consistency, the deck would actually be ridiculous. But without that consistency, it's just not. You might as well just play an OTK deck that does have consistency. Cyber Dragons, they can search. Heroes, they can search, and once they attack, they can search even more. At that
Right.
point, that's really what the deck's missing.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's enough on Dragunity. This is a new deck that's been out. This is another deck. I think people just want to be good. We've seen some success with it in the top 32s, and that's Gouki. This is an anime
Mhm.
deck, right? I don't watch the show, but I guess this is like a fan favorite, right?
I haven't really watched much of V Reigns, which is where it came from. I did see the episode where this is the guy who played him. They're all wrestling moves, and the guy is like
Oh, okay, okay.
it's like a pro duelist style after like a wrestler. It's cool.
Oh,
I get it.
that's why it's the suplex instead of the
Yeah, the
suplex.
suplex, the
Okay.
bear hug. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay, okay,
literally the WWE deck. No,
okay.
the deck it surprisingly functions well. To kind of clear it up, it's not because of the deck itself. It's more of the type of back row that's
I
super
was about
good
to say, how
right
can you
now.
say the deck is good? I'm looking at like nine
Yeah.
monsters. It, 2, 4,
So
6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 defensive
yeah.
cards.
So when you analyze the meta, you kind of have to, think what type of meta are we in? And right now we're
Right,
definitely in a back row centric meta. I would say back row graveyard banishing meta. Those are like the
right.
three kind of things, rock, paper, scissors that come into play
Mhm.
when you're talking about this meta. And a lot of cards in this meta, for example, Ballista Squad. A lot of people use Ballista Squad and Shiranui because it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever I ballista, I can use in the following turn through my graveyard. So it's not like I'm
Right.
really using anything to destroy a card for free. Gouki take that kind of idea one step further and say, well, if I tribute something from my Ballista Squad, I get to add any monster I want to my hand, anything, any Gouki essentially, which is all they play for the most part.
Because
Um,
everything takes place in the graveyard with them, right? The
it's not even the
Gokis.
graveyard. As long as they leave the field, period, I
Oh,
believe
okay.
they get
So
their
it's like they're
effect.
getting
Yeah.
thrown out of the ring and they're jumping back in.
Yeah, or actually, just kidding. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, yeah. So if it's sent from
Okay.
to the graveyard from the field, but that's the thing. If it's sent, period, not if it's destroyed, not if
Okay.
it's as long as it's sent there, so you can tribute it, you can do anything to it. The effect's going to go off, and you can search
Okay.
your deck. So essentially, it's a control deck. It's a very economical deck. You're trying to out resource your opponent. Your Twist Cobra is going to try and go off. He can climb to ridiculous attack heights just from tributing the monsters. And again, it's as if you're paying nothing because as long as your back row is there to prevent you from getting OTK'd, you can have follow up turn, and you're going to have the Suprex coming out summoning on two monsters, the Twist Cobra coming out for ridiculous attack points.
But you gotta be rich to play this deck, right? Because Suplex, that's
You
URs.
do,
Ballista
you
Squad,
do.
Fiendish Chain, Needle Ceiling, Canadia,
It is one of the more
Spirit
expensive
Karibo.
decks in the game,
If you're
and for
spending money like
how
this to play a rogue deck, come on.
yeah, no way, dude. So the problem, right, is that exactly like if you're gonna spend this much money on the game, you wouldn't be playing this deck. A majority of people playing this deck, and that's why we call it a fan favorite, are people who have these cards. Because if you look around, you'll see some builds that don't have
Right,
the super expensive cards, but they just don't do as well. If we're being completely honest, they just
right.
don't perform as well.
Yeah.
The kind of the downside, right, is you're paying so much for such a crappy deck at the end of
Right.
the day,
That's
where you could definitely go into other, like you spend that same amount of money in Sure New, you'll have an infinitely better deck for infinitely better matchups.
Can I just
Um,
put in like a bunch of Axe Raiders and Beaver Warriors with this back row and still win at
you
this
could
point?
probably win some games, especially on ladder. You could definitely win some games. Um, So yeah, it's just more the deck works with the current meta and it being slow enough that we can play these ridiculous trap cards, and it just does so well with all those trap cards that the Gokis have been good, and the fact that they are an anime deck and kind of are a little bit of a fan favorite. And of course, there's no two ways about it. We are kind of in a stale meta right now as well.
Right.
So a lot of these players already have these cards, already have the best cards. They're going to be rolling up with Goki just for fun. Now, to be fair, there is still value in playing them. Like I said, free Ballista Squad, free enemy controller. Those are all very powerful within their own right. Taking away the cost of the deck and just looking at the cards as they are. The ability for all of the cards to search each other within the archetype is actually really, really, really good. And that's where like all the power kind of lies in right now.
And this did win the PCT this past week, right?
Undefeated, yeah, they went through and were undefeated. It was kind of weird. The finals, it was against this versus Stall,
Stall,
which
yeah.
Stall cannot do anything to this deck. Ballista Squad pops anything on the board. Floodgate makes it so any of your poke cards will die right away. And then yeah, if you can't floodgate this deck effectively because they have so many ways to tribute. You floodgate one monster, Twist Cobra comes out, you try to floodgate Twist Cobra, he tributes anything. He can tribute the floodgated monster, even if it's face down, he can tribute himself. And then if he's doing that, you're also searching cards as well. So, if Stall tries to out-resource you, well, you can't really out-resource Gouki because they just infinitely recycle themselves. Not infinitely, but recycle enough for that Duel Links, it feels like infinity.
Right. So how do you shut this deck down then? Why is it not being? Why aren't we seeing it more in the tops and winning tournaments?
So attack points is a huge factor when it comes into it. The twist. So for them to get over their base, I think the highest they have is like 23. Yeah, 23. For them to get over that, they need 2 monsters on the board. One being Twist Cobra, and then once that monster's gone, you can't Twist Cobra again. Like on your opponent's turn.
Oh, okay.
So it's very difficult for them to get to like a high attack point place to begin with. So if they're unable to control a deck, so for example, E-Sabers when they summon Casitas, if you summon Kaliga, if you summon anything like that, if you summon a Samurai Destroyer that stops them from searching, if you're able to interrupt them with Fiendish Chain is so much better than Floodgate in this deck, versus this deck rather. It just gets to the point where if you're able to out control them, if they never apply control to you, basically, you control them, that's it. They can't do anything else.
Okay.
And then on top of that, like with all back row heavy decks, if you just open up a whole bunch of monsters and no back row, you lose. Like it's just not. There's nothing you can do about that. So outplaying this deck, it's pretty simple, and you could probably even like Yosenju, we were talking about it, is probably really good into this as well, because every time they go try and kill your OYAM, they essentially have to Twist Cobra effect, and they're gonna get drained so quickly because then your OEM's gonna search, so you both go fine. You're fine. You know what I mean? Like, you get a search off OEM, he gets a search off his monster, and then who's gonna end up having more monsters at the end of the game? Probably the Yosenju player.
So would you buy this deck or would you pass on it?
I'm
personally gonna pass.
I tell people if you have the back row available, if you have 3 Ballista Squad or 3 Fiendish Chain, one of those two, this is a deck that's interesting enough for you to play, and you will get results with. But if you don't already have pretty much all this back row, don't
even bother.
This deck's, and it's a very poor investment as well, because Gokis themselves probably won't do anything until Link Summoning comes out. They might do something with XCs. There might, because the Suprex coming out is able to summon another monster from your hand. But even then, all their levels are so different. Unless you're able to cheese the levels or something, that's not enough. So probably Link Summoning is when they're going to really be able to shine and come into their own and not just be a back row heavy deck. And we are super far. Yeah, we are super far from that. So I would not recommend going into this deck if you don't already have the broken back row to make it like a tier 3 deck essentially at that point.